Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review covers the vintage 1969 Buick Riviera kit. It's a 125 scale kit from AMT/Ertel. It's scale model kit number 38166. These kits are no longer made and haven't been for quite a while, but with the classic lines of this kit and the attractive prices that you can find them at on online auctions and in garage sales, it makes for a nice quick build and with a little extra work, a really nice looking display model. Now it's a intermediate level kit and requires glue and paint. And the kit itself has been re-released a couple of times, but it started out, I think, as a screw bottom promo. And this kit contains about 85 pieces molded in white, chrome, clear, and vinyl tires with metal axles. The only decals in the kit are basically some tags, license tags, and there's some nice custom parts to build the kit with. But I chose to build this one as a factory stock model for the review. Now the instructions are the old fold out and exploded diagram style. Overall, build is simplistic and the fit is fair. It's quite typical of the early AMT type kits and on par for its mold technology at its time. When you're done, it's about 8.5 inches long, 3 inches wide, and 2 inches tall. Here are the contents of the kit, and as you can see, the parts in the glass and the tires are separately bagged to keep them from marring each other. There's also two sets of tires and wheels for custom versions, so you can go ahead and use those at your discretion. Now we'll be using Model Master's clear liquid cement, and we'll also use occasionally some super glue for the fine detail parts and some white or crystal clear glue for the window glass. Now remember also to use the safety and use guidelines by the manufacturer for any of the parts or products that you see used or seen here in the review. As typical, we will start construction with the motor, and this nicely detailed one starts with the assembly of the block, the heads, the oil pan, and the motor's front. You paint that orange, and the transmission is a steel color. The intake and exhaust manifolds are steel, and the belts, starter, air cleaner, and distributor are semi-gloss black. Now the oil filters are white color, so put all the pieces together. Gather up these parts and paint the chassis flat black with steel exhaust and aluminum mufflers. Now the firewall, the battery, and the radiator is flat black also. Gather up these pieces for the interior and paint the seats, dash, and the steering wheel a semi-gloss black. You'll find that the steering wheel column is a little bit too long, so cut about 1/4 of an inch off the bottom after you install it into the dashboard. It will still sit on the seat, but it won't be in the middle of the seat, much closer to the end, so that it looks more properly placed. Because the interior is mostly black and difficult to see through the windows, make sure that you take a little time to highlight some of the metal pieces that are found on the interior, such as the seat buckles and the trim around the steering wheel. Now you're at the point where you get to choose between the custom and the stock wheels as shown here, and then you can paint the rims in the back a flat black and get those ready to mount. As I mentioned, I went with the stock parts for this kit, including the wheels. Now install a rim into a tire and add the rim back, and then add an axle into the holes in one side of the rim. Then slide the metal axle into the hole in the rear axle and the front axle area, and then on the opposite side, press the tires together towards each other tightly until they match up to the chassis. Now you can install the exhaust, and as with any of the parts, make sure that you scrape off any paint or chrome to ensure a good joint where you put the glue points together. And you'll note that the exhaust on the chassis and the motor that do not fit. There's really no way to make them fit without adding a section of pipe, and you could make that from either some warmed up sprue or some thick solder that matches the diameter of the pipes. Now it's time to paint the body. I tape the hood into place on the body so that it gets a good color match with the rest, and then I give it a light coat of a Krylon type of primer or Duplicolor, and then sand out any blemishes, and once that's dry, you go ahead and give it your color coat by starting out with a few light mist coats inside and out like your primer, and then add thicker and wetter coats until you get a good even coverage. I think that this one turned out really nice in gold. After the paint had fully cured, I added some touches to the trim, the side marker light bezels, the rocker panels, using some metal foil. It's just like tape that you cut for the size of the feature you want to highlight. Then you just stick it on like a piece of tape and then trim it off with a nice sharp knife. Then I added the glass into place inside the body using some white glue. And then finally on the hood and the trunk, I highlighted the Riviera script with a chrome marking pen. Now we'll add the interior and the firewall to the body, and you can see that there's some pretty good and positive glue joint spots for those, but scrape any paint off to make sure you get a good bond. For the interior, it might work well to use some epoxy glue there to make sure it stays into place. Next, we'll install the body onto the chassis. We're going to shoehorn that into place by spreading the sides of the body out slightly and wiggling the body down onto the chassis until it lines up, then glue it in place in the back end. Additionally, the front end needs to be securely glued into place to keep the body from coming up on and showing a gap. So I used some super glue here at the front end to make sure that it stayed in place and was well bonded. Let's detail the grill with some black wash and the main grill inserts there. Just use a 50-50 mix of flat black and thinner and paint that area. And then after it started to dry a little bit, you can kind of rub the highlighted chrome off of there so that the ribs of the chrome show through, and yet the background is still got a good black wash to it. Now the blinkers are also a clear orange color, so paint those with some turn signal amber and then install the grill into the body. The grill is a pretty good fit into the body. Just make sure that you scrape the chrome off at your glue points to be sure that it will stay into place. With the chassis now in place, we can see that the motor looks pretty good sitting in the flat black engine bay, and that there's plenty of room for detailing if you want to go that extra step. Detail the rear end here bumper with some red paint, clear red paint for the tail lights, and some white paint for the backup lights on the inner sections of the taillight area. I wanted to personalize my Rivi, so I printed my logo out onto a license plate image and then sized it up to fit and cut it out of some plain paper from an inkjet printer. I then covered the front and back with some plain tape and glued it into place on the bumper so that it looked like my own personal luxury car. After installing the bumper, you'll note that the exhaust no longer protrudes out the bottom like they do on the real car. So if you want to alter that, you'll have to once again cut the tips off and then scratch build some solder or sprue to come out around the bottom of the bumper. There will be a few extra pieces left over from the kit for the custom versions of the model, including a nice looking custom hood and those extra set of wheels and tires. But you can always put these in your parts stash and save them for another build. Well, there you have it. This has always been a great looking kit. Even from the bottom end though, you can see that it would look pretty nice if all the exhaust pipes are finished off properly. And that can still be done with a little bit of work and scratch building. But once you're done with this kit, it makes for a really great looking shelf sitter. And the clean lines of that '69 Riviera are just a classic. Overall, the finished build's not that hard, and although the fit and finish is far from great, it still goes together well if you do a little test fitting and sanding to make sure things fit properly. It was a simple kit from the beginning, and it won't be a contest winner unless you just call it a curbside. Now, as for a former promo kit, you know, it's got some bothers, some spots. The exhaust is probably the worst, but you know, that's because promo kits have the exhaust molded into the chassis, yet they removed it or used a different chassis, and then they added pipes for this kit, but they didn't re-engineer the chassis to accommodate them. So you'll have to do a little scratch there, but once you're done, she'll look just fine. If you like this premium scale model kit review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. But you can find us on Facebook and our website, rideonreplicas.com. Thanks!
This review is brought to you in part by Ryder's Hobby Shops, where the fun begins. Stop in to one of Ryder's 2 convenient Michigan locations where you'll find a full range of the latest hobby products, supplies, parts, tools, and paint. You'll find aisles and aisles of scale model kits, RC models, model rockets, Warhammer gaming, and railroading products. Stop in at Ryder's today and tell them Doug sent you.